my question is this: a lot of what you were just describing with the CSR has to do with a specific project and how, before we have to mitigate its, bad outcomes, you can ensure that it happens, in a way that's consistent with social responsibility. But I guess my question is, how do you remain an idealist when there are situations where it's virtually impossible to sort of reconcile the interests? Or, for example, I mean, I'm not an oil expert, but in the pharma sector, let's say, it's very rare that a company, it would be in a company's interest to, give up its intellectual property rights to generics manufacturers in other countries. And it might allow it in emergencies, it might give out free drugs, but in the end, it's always going to lobby against another country trying to provide cheaper drugs for its people. So my question is there a certain point at which the basic interests of a corporation are so fundamentally against, let's say, something that is aligned with social responsibility that it becomes very difficult? Thank you.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, Dan. I mean, I think when I worked at BP, the senior executives there talked about the company's mission as being to deliver heat, light, and mobility. I mean, without a hint of irony, right? This is truly what people believed the company was all about. I suspect that if you talk to people in the pharmaceutical sector, they would say that their mission is to invent drugs that save lives and cure disease. And in order to do that, they've got a business model whereby they have to invest so much in R&D that this is where their price point ends up. And again, I don't know the argument that well, right? I'm just hypothesizing here. So I would hazard a guess, and I don't know if there are people in the sector here, please chime in, that there are probably people in the company who are lobbying for greater access to medicine for a wider population. But there are probably also people who understand that that's what the business model is right now. And you need people to be pushing incrementally to see if there's something to tweak around the edges, if it's special cases or whatever. You need people outside who are clamoring and lobbying and advocating to overthrow the system. But I don't know. I mean, from my own experience, and again, looking back, I realize how unique this is, but that's what I know best. What I saw there and what I believed was that those projects that I worked on, those were inevitable, that development was going to happen. And so my role was to try to mitigate the risks as best I could. And there's a sort of acceptance there that, again, other people don't believe, right? That some people want to stop development and don't believe that projects like that should go forward at all. And so I don't know if part of your question would imply being in that camp. And that's fine. Like, we need people to sort of, be in that camp too. But I guess that's sort of where I sit, is that I didn't feel like, from my own beliefs, that development is inevitable and that we can mitigate risk to people, that I was comfortable sitting in that space.